What's up everybody? In today's video, I'm taking some upcycled cardboard and turning it into a set of faux wood coasters. If you enjoy DIY projects videos, please feel free to subscribe. I post on Fridays and some Sundays and would love to have you join our fun time party. Don't forget to do all the stuff to get notifications of all my videos. I cut up the Home Depot box for my recently purchased paint sprayer. The flaps are all relatively close in size and there was minimal if any damage to the corrugation. I used a new blade on my X-Acto knife to separate the different pieces, and I saved the other sections for a future project. I'm cutting 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch squares for this DIY. My backing material is 4x4 and this way it'll fit slightly inside the bottom edge. Because I want these to resemble real wood, I'm doubling up on cardboard thickness. I'll need 8 squares in total. To attach the 2 layers, I'm using Aleene's wood glue. I coated the entire surface of one square, pressed the other piece on top and wiggled it a little to distribute the glue. Then I used a few paint containers to weigh down the top so things didn't slide around while it dries. I left everything to dry for about an hour. Instead of tossing the brown packing paper that came in the box, I decided to use it too. I ripped up a bunch of pieces, trying to keep them mostly square and rectangle shapes. For rounded edges, it's better to go thinner so they'll curve without folding, but for straight edges, I want to coat as much as possible with each piece. Then it was time to Mod Podge this DIY. As usual, I'm using a 1-to-1 mix of Podge to water. I started with the corners. I wrapped the corner like wrapping a present. I placed the brown paper on the top side of the cardboard square so a bit overhangs both edges at the corner. I fold one side over to the back, add Mod Podge, and push through the middle of the fold to gently press the paper down onto the edge. I add some Podge to the back and press the triangle down. Finally, I added paper to coat the top surface. I'm not coating the bottom since it'll all be covered. They dried within a couple of hours. I created these tabs and taped them to the center of the bottom part of the square. My plan is to use them to hold the piece from beneath so I can access the other 5 sides freely. I got some DAP brand patching plaster after watching Dream Fairy DIY's cardboard craft videos for inspiration. Like I said in my welcome sign video, I'm really enjoying watching her channel, and her pieces always come out so cool. I'll link to her channel below if you want to check her out. I mixed up the plaster to reincorporate some water that rose to the top, and the plaster was ready to go. I used Japan scrapers to add a thin coat of the plaster to the top surface and all 4 edges. I just moved and manipulated the product around until things were relatively even all over. And I made sure to scrape back any globules that snuck onto the bottom side. Once I got it coated, it was time to pull the faux wood finish. I used a chip brush to create a shallow graining, and I fixed a mistake that I made on the welcome sign. On these, I made sure to adjust the finish on the edges so only 2 have long graining, but 2 have a nubbier end grain appearance. And I repeated this process for all 4 coasters. I made sure to keep the graining vibe, but gave each one a bit of individuality, just like real wood. I left them to dry overnight. The next morning, I got ready for paint. First, I removed the tabs. Then I grabbed my 3M 220 grit sanding sheet and gave the bottoms a thorough sanding. I don't want any raised plaster on the bottom. Okay, that's done, but I do want to just, barely even touching it, just to knock off any big major stuff. And that's mostly because I want this surface, even though it's textured, to be flat, relatively flat. That way a glass isn't gonna like tip over, you know? Can't be having glasses tipping over. So, when I say the lightest possible sanding in the world, I mean it. Just to knock off that top layer of any chunkers that happen to be in the field of potential cups. I grabbed a rag to wipe off the dust. I did wet it ever so slightly, but I don't want to rehydrate the plaster, so it's barely damp. Okay, if you saw my weathered wood welcome sign that I also did out of cardboard, then you already know what I'm going to do here with these coasters. I want to do the same finish. I gave them the same basic finish in the plaster, so I want to do the same finish with dry brushing and acrylic paint, but because I'm not doing plaster or anything on the bottom of these coasters, I want to make sure that they're sealed and protected, so I'm going to use my Bare Eggshell. I've used this color about, 60 billion times on this channel, only a slight exaggeration. I'm using that in Gray Squirrel. It's one of my favorites, and it's especially good for a weathered wood look because it's got that perfect, like, gray-green, grayish kind of situation going on where it'll be a really, really good, deep, rich color to sink into all of these little grooves in the wood, and then when I dry brush on top, it'll come to life. But because it's latex, it's going to seal this cardboard and my covering paper, Mod Podge paper here, and Mod Podge, it's going to seal it in really nicely. So try to be as careful as possible about going completely over the edges because I really want to make sure that I can do a good solid coat without drips. Once the bottom dried, I flipped them over and did the same thing to the tops and sides. I made sure to use a generous coat, but not too thick so it dries evenly. I paid special attention to the deeper grooves and divots on the sides, making sure to really get paint in there to seal the plaster. And I ended up doing some touch-ups off camera. Then I left them to dry. Now is where the fun stuff starts. I finally get to do the faux finish on this DIY. For the weathered feel, I'm using craft acrylic. 1, because I have the right colors on hand, and 2, because it dries really quickly. I started with a mid-tone, and using my chip brush, I added that color in random drags across the pieces. I went in all directions and used my judgment for when it felt right. Then I did the same thing with the same brush in the lighter color, except I lessened the coverage some so all 3 colors would come through. I ended up doing 4 coats of my favorite Modern Masters Dead Flat varnish on these, especially since they're coasters and could see some moisture. But Modern Masters is water resistant, not waterproof, so I won't dunk them. But with 4 coats of varnish, they should hold up pretty well. All I had left to do was add the sticky-backed cork base, and these coasters were complete. I don't know about you, but I think these faux wood coasters turned out amazing, especially considering they started life as an upcycled cardboard box. I can't wait to put these to the test for a while and see how well they hold up over time. They're super light and easy to stack up in my coffee table tray. What do you think of this DIY? Leave me a comment and let me know. Don't forget to like the video, then subscribe for more DIYs and DIY home improvement on Fridays and some Sundays. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Later, peeps! Now is where the fun stuff starts. I finally get to do the faux finish on this DIY. Nope, I sound like I just woke up. Probably because I did. Take 2 on that. If you saw my welcome sign video, then you already know exactly what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna do a nice beachy weathered wood. Weathered wood look. No, my paint doesn't want to open today. Come on, paint. Okay, that seems right. Oh, go on camera. Oh, God, ow. Okay.